My name is Tammy Penta, and I'm a retired sergeant with the Tucson Police Department. I did 30 years there, and my expertise was vulnerable adults and adult disabled individuals that were victimized, and I'm also an expert on child abuse and child homicide. So that's just a rundown. And I'm the mom of Victor, if you were at the FDA thing, because that's what I refer to here. Let's see here. So that's my daughter. She's running the sibling program now over there for those of you that might have siblings. So she's a lot older than that. So what I'd like to get going on this is, this is going to provide introductory information about how best to prepare for an event that may happen, and it will happen, trust me, in your home or at one of the residential facilities, and law enforcement or a family member gets called on, either accused of or they're a victim of. Preparation truly is key before the crisis happens. If you do not do that before the crisis is going to happen, and it can really domino down, and you'll have a lot of issues. We want the best possible outcome, and jail is not it, not for our kids. This is going to, working as one with our law enforcement agencies on a positive outcome, how to best work with law enforcement, how to contact law enforcement, how to educate your local agencies, what to do if one of your kids or adults are arrested. What if one of your family, what if you're accused of something and are arrested? What's law enforcement's role, and what are the civil remedies? So preparation is key for anything like that. Make sure that family and providers completely understand PWS and your individual with PWS, because they are two separate things. All of our kids or our clients are very different from one another. So make sure that the people that are actually going to be there understand both PWS and that person. Make sure that there is continued training of outside providers and debrief these incidents. I say that because there's triggers, and there's always triggers. And if as your kid gets older, if you start doing check marks on those triggers, you'll be able to environmentally keep those triggers from happening. Not all the time, but you'll be able to minimize them some. Preparation of your neighbors, your day program staff, school staff, anyone that will have contact with your loved one, and think outside the box. Circle K, food deliveries, Amazon, those type. My son's a big Amazon thing, committed fraud schemes, class 2 felony, and I'm a retired cop. It happens. And that's even when you have things locked down. It just does. So, this what I talk about is actually bringing local law enforcement agencies into your home to really talk to them about your home. We want to know the PWS person, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's important. When you prepare for that, make sure you have a folder together, including some pamphlets on PWS. Don't overwhelm cops. They don't want too much stuff, but they do need some information. Come on in. Get a small bio on them that describes the triggers, because we're preparing. This is not a crisis, we're preparing. Things that work and don't work, because law enforcement will be called, or they'll call 911. It's good for them to have this information. If you're gonna have a meeting in your home, if you have extended family members or friends that are caretakers, that this individual may be with them, invite them as well, so that everybody is on the same page. Because I don't know what your kids are like, but my kid will find the weak link in here, and there's always one, right? And so they will find that, and that's who they will act out with. So when you're partnering with police, determine what agency services your home or business. So, the way the police departments work is you have an agency that is at your home. So like I live in Oro Valley, and so Oro Valley Police Department is the one that services that. But if Victor's at a day program or he's at his work, Tucson Police does that. So you might have to bring a couple different agencies in to educate them, because they may be in different places. Each department these days has a community resource officer, or sergeant that deals with daily community stuff within their division. Contact them, brief that sergeant officer about your home or your facility. This is important because, and what I say, you know, I don't want to say that all cops are narrow-minded because I was a cop for 30 years, but if they hear that it is a group home or they go to a crisis situation and they don't know the background, they're going to have a different mindset than if you've already prepared them for what they're coming into. Crisis intervention team, I was instrumental 30 some odd years, well it's longer than that now because I've been retired 7 years. We put into place crisis intervention team in Arizona because we had 3 officer involved shootings involving developmentally disabled or mental health crisis situations. And so we have now, the entire state gets trained in crisis intervention dealing with people with developmental disabilities, and we actually train them on Prader-Willi in Arizona. Which is critical. When you're preparing, request a meeting with the supervisor and the crisis intervention team. See if you can make it time for overlapping. So these crisis intervention teams are your patrol officers that are out there in the street. And so they work, you know, mornings, noons, afternoons, and evenings, and overnights. So if you can do an overlap meeting, that really helps because you'll be able to get more bang for your buck. And gather all information, necessary materials together and make them folders. If you know 5 people are coming, give them a little information so that they have that. When you're there on that meeting day, have your critical people there, family, providers, day staff, whoever, so everybody's on the same page. Give them information, don't overload them like I tell you, provide them information about your child and explain the issues law enforcement encounters with our populations. They steal, they lie, you know, they assault, they are verbally abusive, so you have disorderly conduct. There's several things. And each of our kids are different, so if there is something specific to your child or your adult, make sure that you're speaking upon that. And show them a blue form, and I'm going to tell you what a blue form is right here. Something that I kind of put in, and I put it on blue for law enforcement. You can also do a red one for meds if you have medical things. And this is, you could put whatever you wanted in here. But it's just, if there's not a crisis, they're coming there, and not everything is breaking loose. If you have this handy, you can give it, because this is a down and dirty thing. Hey, this is Victor Penta, he's got Prader-Willi syndrome, it's a developmental disability, it causes blah, 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 blah. Victor has a 70 IQ, but functions as a 12-year-old. And then you can go into just a very quick paragraph of what the issues your adult or child has. You know, Victor must have food locked for them all the times because we get accused of neglect because we lock stuff. If they get into food unsupervised, it is life-threatening, and you could add, you know, Victor will lie about whatever. Family has PWS information available if there's further questions. Now, this is critical if it's not a crisis situation. You don't have somebody that has a fire extinguisher, because that's happened, and going after family members. If that happens, law enforcement's going to have to go in and secure everything so that nobody gets hurt. And that may mean that your child's going to, or adult's going to be handcuffed, at least temporarily. But when it calms down, they can go back, read this, and then hopefully we can have a successful resolution. On meeting day, you know, give them a walk through your home. It is not normal to have locks on your refrigerators and your cabinets. And so 30 some odd years ago, I had staff arrested in Tucson because the client went and said that they weren't being fed and everything was locked up. And the officer was new and believed her and went and saw everything was locked up. They actually had the refrigerator and everything outside in outside storage area, so it was secured, and he saw that, and he arrested the staff for that. Now, I was able to get that all resolved, and it went away, but it was terrifying, as you can imagine. Show them other locking mechanisms. Some of us have locking mechanisms on doors, on windows and such, and the reasons for elopement, because a lot of them don't understand elopement. And if you say elopement to law enforcement, they may not know what the hell you're talking about. So you might have to go, elopement means they run away, and then they're vulnerable to be victimized. One of the things that, ask if there is a point of contact for non-emergency issues. And it may not always be possible. It depends on the location. Come on in. It may depend on the location, the size of the agency, how many people that they have working. Some of you are very rural. But if they have a point of contact and, you know, there's some things going on, we have a mental health breaks going on with one of our kids, you can call them and let them know. And they could put something in the briefing book so that the officers, because every day, every shift comes in and reads the briefing book, they can come and say, hey, Victor Penta, Prader-Willi syndrome at, you know, Bentwater Drive is experiencing, you know, mental health break with a little blurb about Prader-Willi syndrome. So that, again, if they get called that night to your house, they kind of have a heads up, and it helps. A premise entry. It's not always possible, you know, because of HIPAA and all that stuff, but what a premise entry is all agencies, for the most part, have computers in their police cars now, and they are able to put a premise entry on our individuals, and they can't be specific. They can't say Prader-Willi syndrome because of HIPAA, but they can say this is a group home that houses people with developmental disabilities, or this is a home, residential home, with a person with developmental disabilities has a tendency to run away or what have you. Most agencies are open to doing that. Some are not, you know, but it's good to ask. Because, and some people don't want that in there, you know, about their child, and I respect that. But, you know, if my son is a runner or my son has mental health breaks, I'd much rather them know that ahead of time in the climate of the world today, before they show up and they don't know what's going on and they don't know Victor. Find out what their expectations are of you. They're not the same as ours. You know, we focus and we advocate for our children and our adults our entire life. But law enforcement has, within the law, certain requirements and expectations they have, and they're jurisdictionally different. So ask them, you know, and they'll appreciate that you're like, I'm not barking orders at you. Think, I want to know what you expect of us. What can we do to help you? Because again, it's a partnership. I put this in real quick. This is like a 2-hour thing. That was Victor. He didn't have a diagnosis down there, as you can tell. And then his 18th birthday, and then his 21st birthday in Vegas getting a cocktail. So one of the biggest call generators for law enforcement is neighbor issues. You know, and a lot of it is because today's world, we just don't get to know our neighbors. But I would urge you to go and introduce yourself to your neighbors, give them some information on PWS, give them your emergency contact information, give them an overview, a pamphlet or a printout from the website on PWS. They have a little bit down and dirty bulleted stuff for them. Assure them that you want to be a good neighbor and that you're open to questions or concerns they might have. Ask them, you know, if my loved one comes and does something or there's an issue, please contact me immediately so that I can address it immediately. You know, we just don't talk to each other anymore. And it can be problematic. And in thinking a little bit more, if you have a Circle K right down the street, you know, if you're as resourceful, your kid's as mine, he had a phone, he no longer has a phone. If your kids don't have a phone, don't give them a phone, I'm telling you. Calling pizza, we called all of who we could because we were on the blacklist anyhow, but he bought pizza with Peter Piper coupons and some pesos. And they took it because they're this like, well, I'm not going to not take it. And, you know, or he delivered, pizza delivered down the street because he stole some money to another address for Dr. Phil Penta. And I assure you, my husband's not a doctor. And, you know, I mean, they're very resourceful people, you know, and my son's one of those unique people that if I leave a credit card out, he can memorize the credit card. He's like Rain Man. And then we go back to the Amazon issue, we're into that issue. And And then ask them that they only contact police if there's an emergency. You want them to contact if there's an emergency, if they can't get a hold of you, because we want our folks safe. But try to have them come to you first. So 911 gets called. And you're like, great, here we go. And it's happened. I've had cops show up at my door too, so trust me, it happens. It's either going to be in public place because they're having a meltdown, because they're taking advantage of the situation because the restraints aren't in place as they are in home, or it'll be a crisis situation, or it's going to be somebody's hearing them being very loud and they're calling on you. If it is a crisis situation, the police officers will not have time to go over all these details that we were talking about. They will need to address any threat first, make the situation safe, and then they can slow down and deal with stuff. I know that's not what we want to hear. We don't want our loved ones handcuffed, but if it's a crisis and there's a threat, they have to, okay? When they do, these are the various outcomes. The officer, will resolve the issue and make a report of what occurred. They are required to make a report. And again, in today's world, everything has to be documented. So I know we don't want our kids in the system. We don't want a report made on them, but they have to document it. Just in the event that somebody comes back and says they didn't do anything, there's written documentation. The other one is the officer will feel that there's a safety concern and they'll call Adult Protective Services or Child Protective Services for guidance. And understand, if they call and they come out, they supersede police if they want to do an emergency extraction of that child or adult. The police can't say, no, we're going to do that. They actually dictate that. The other option is the officer will transport your child or adult to the hospital for an involuntary committal. The officer will advise you no arrests are going to be made, but your child or another is a suspect and detectives will follow up. Or they'll make an arrest of your child or adult or another, and it could be through either a field release, which is a ticket, or a custody arrest, which means they go to jail. There's also non-criminal situations, and I know I'm flying through this, guys, but we don't have a lot of time. Running away is a status offense. Mental health breaks is not a non-criminal. They're a danger to self or others. And then there's other jurisdictional specifics that can occur. Come in, sit down. That are specific to those locations that are non-criminal. Those, they won't be arrested, but they could be taken to the hospital. Some of the various criminal situations that we see with our population, disorderly conduct, I don't know about you, but Victor, even when he's talking soft, he's talking loud, so, and when he's having a meltdown, he's really bad. Assault, aggravated assault, theft in and outside of the home, criminal damage, burglary, sex crimes, and I put other. We have been fortunate enough not to have any homicide charges. We haven't had anybody go that far, but I've had to deal with all of these things with PWSA when we have families or providers calling in to try to rectify and have the best case scenario. So if your child's been arrested, a couple things to really keep in mind. Is there guardianship in place and how that plays out? So that's a personal choice for you guys if you're going to do guardianship. Even if you have guardianship in place, that person can be arrested. It doesn't negate that they're going to not be arrested, okay? So they can be arrested. However, we have a civil court judge that has said, and it's a legal order saying that they can't understand and be responsible for themselves. So we can mitigate that down, and so can an attorney. Come in and sit down. Field release versus in custody, that's a ticket versus going to jail. Misdemeanor versus felony. Misdemeanor is, worst case scenario, there's a small jail time at the local jail, or, you have community service, or you pay a fine. Felony is, something serious where you can go to prison. If any of those things happen, please call PWSA USA. I'm their law enforcement liaison, and if I can get involved, and the earlier I can get involved, the better chance I have of resolving this, because I tell you what, if I can get it before it goes to the prosecutor's office, it makes a world of difference, because I can talk to the detectives or the sergeants and explain everything's going on, and they can choose, depending on the crime, they can choose not to go forward to the prosecutors, or they can go to the prosecutor and say, I don't think this is a case we need to take because of this. If it does go to the prosecutor's office, we could still mitigate it, and we've been successful in mitigating it, to be able to make those charges going away. Once arraignment's done, it's a little bit more difficult, but we're still successful doing it, but the earlier, the better. And PWSA can help because we will educate any of those people that are involved with your families in the legal system. Family's been arrested, which is very scary. It's usually due to a lack of education. Skin picking. I had a father arrested because of his son was skin picking, and they thought it was cigarette burns, and they were arrested. It went away. We got that right away. It went away. I mean, and I say don't panic, but you know that's easier said than done when you're the ones dealing with this in your family. The same outcome. If you've been arrested, there's going to be field release or in custody. Know your rights. Know your rights. Okay, it's that Miranda that you guys law and order thing that we hear. You know, if they're reading your rights, you know, they're looking. Okay, and I know a lot of us like, I have nothing to hide, and that's great, and that's a personal choice if you're going to talk or not, but just know your rights, and if it's very serious, seek legal representation. I'm sure that you would agree, Tim, right? If you do have a local liaison, police liaison that we spoke about earlier where you've set it up, have someone then call them. Have those law enforcement officers that are responding to your house or your facility, have them call them because they can educate them. We are fortunate enough now to have a 24-hour line with PWSA. Call them, let them know, because the sooner we get involved, the better. If the right professionals are involved from the beginning, you know, we can educate them. And we've been, knock on wood again, we've been very successful getting cases that have been charged, reduced, or they went away altogether. And with that said, we do have some people that truly do abuse our children. We have domestic violence. So it goes both ways, but if you're on the other side of it, please make sure you're doing this. And this also helps with CPS and APS. I've spoken to their folks often, and they're very open to understanding what's going on too. So say it is not, we got criminal charges going on. Your kid threw a ball because they were ticked off through the neighbor's window, and they get charged with criminal damage, which is a misdemeanor. If it's under a certain amount. There's civil remedies that can be done. They can be in lieu of criminal charges. The cops come out, and the neighbor next door doesn't really want to prosecute. They can decide not to go away. It can be in conjunction with it. For instance, they get shoplifting, and they might have to pay a fee and told not to come back. They also may dictate that the person can't return to that store, which happens, and if they do, then they'll be arrested for trespassing, but they will do a civil remedy rather than having criminal charges brought up. If arrested, you could ask for a misdemeanor compromise. Most jurisdictions have that. So my kid throws a ball through a window or damages something, and he's arrested for that misdemeanor. You can go to that victim and ask if they would be willing to, if you know who the victim is, or you can ask the prosecutor for a misdemeanor compromise. And that basically says, you know, Tammy fixed my window to my satisfaction, and so I no longer want to press charges. Now, that doesn't work for domestic violence because domestic violence in most jurisdictions have the state prosecuting, and you're not allowed to change those decisions. Quickly on missing persons, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if you have your kid go missing, call 911 immediately. Most people want to wait. Call 911 immediately. Have somebody check your house thoroughly. Have another person go where they might go, because a lot of times they have a place they like to go. Make sure you always have a photo, fingerprints, DNA if you have it, an overview. The blue form would be great. If they have a GPS or a phone or a tablet with them all the time. Have this done before that goes missing, that person goes missing, and if they have gone in the past, make sure that where they've gone, obsessions, you know, they go down to the gaming, they go down to the restaurant where they might go, contact family and friends that they communicate with, and have another family member contact the other family members where they might have gone or that they have access to. And if they are on social media, we'll talk about this in a minute, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, if you do not have oversight on that, you need to get it now. You need to get it now. Because you can go on there because there are predators that, that will take advantage of them. How are we doing on time? Because I was blowing through this. Oh, we're doing okay. That's the little girl at the beginning, that's her now. She's actually pregnant with another one on the way. And she's Victor's primary care provider. And he lives with her 2 days a week. And that's him at one of his many hospital visits. So, the dark web and how parents can help their child and adult from becoming a victim. And this is really scary. How many of you guys have kids or clients that have access to the internet? I'm talking PlayStation 5, tablets, phones, yeah, pretty much everyone. How many of you does it scare you? Yeah, it scares the crap out of me too. It really does. It's terrifying because it's everywhere. And you know, we take a phone away and then they have a DS, and you take this away and they have a Switch, and you take that away, they go, oh, no, I'm just going to go to the library and I'm going to read, and you're at the library and they're over on the computer, right? So, I mean, it's everywhere and it's so hard to control. If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have given them access to any of it, because once you give them access, it's hard to take away. It really is. And I feel guilty, like most parents. I want him to have that social interaction, because they're isolated a lot of times. And, but when we do that, we open up the possibility of victimization, sadly. So people with intellectual disabilities are more susceptible to the exploitation and abuse. And the rise of the internet only increases that vulnerability. Arizona State University has been doing some ongoing studies about developmental disabilities. So is Michigan State, and how to deal with people with developmental disabilities. But we don't have a lot of information on this. We're on the cusp because I think people are realizing that this is a bigger issue than what it is. I include this, and I think it's going to be available. If you Google, 21 apps parents should know about, and this can go not only for your child or adult with Prader-Willi, but if you have other kids, man, get on this, because I'm telling you, these kids they're very good at going on and hiding stuff. Some of these things, like the calculator and stuff like that, it looks like a calculator when you look on their tablet, and it's not. It's hiding photos. Some of these apps, it looks like it's pictures, and it's not. It's a chat. And it's scary. It is absolutely terrifying to know. I have another page with a whole bunch of other ones. And I believe this presentation and some of this stuff is going to be available to you online or on your app. This is from ASU. Parents should look for, with their children's phones. There's a whole list of things, and I know it's very small. There's a whole encompassing thing, but I knew they were going to give you handouts or they were going to give you something. It's crazy. There are so many different things that these kids can do to hide who they're talking to. Michigan State University study said 1/3 when they did their study, 1/3 of the people with developmental disabilities said they would send their photo to an online person and would arrange to go to the home of a person they met online and keep that relationship from parents and caregivers. That's not typical kids. These are all developmentally disabled individuals. 86% of adults use social networking from that group, such as Facebook daily. Makes sense, my son does. And typically without supervision. And I don't know about you, but when COVID happened, we just all needed a break, right? I mean, we're stuck at home with each other, and if you made it without a divorce, man, it was a good thing. But we just needed a break, especially if you had kids and you're homeschooling them now and you're doing everything. You're just just go get on the computer and play some games. But that's where we see the supervision lacking. And I think that was kind of it had been happening a lot, but I saw an increase in that. The participants shared that a large amount of when they're on social media, they share a large amount of identifiable information on their profiles, and are likely to agree and engage in socially risky behavior. So Messenger, how many of your kids get on video chats with people, and or audio? But it's scary, because if they're videoing somebody that they don't know, or somebody who they don't know videos them, and they pick it up and they're like, hey, I'm your friend, John, I went to CDO with you, Victor. And I don't know about you, but like Victor, if someone says he's your friend, or he says he knows him, he's his best friend. He's my best friend since like third grade. And it might have been his best friend in third grade, but he hasn't seen him, and Victor's 29, But to him, and I'm sure you guys have similar things that happen. That's the scary part, because there are people that seek out people to victimize. And with them being out there and saying, yeah, we would do that, it's terrifying. So things to consider, what can you do within the boundaries of the law? Now, as parents, and if you've got guardianship of them, you've got control of that stuff, right? If you're the parents and you paid for that plan, you can take it away. But it's a little bit different, and I don't know if we have any providers in here, but it's a little bit different with providers, and they have group homes, and these people are their own guardians, and it's a whole different kind of worms, and we won't even get into that. There's very little statistics on this with PWS. I looked, and there's not, so I guess I'm going to have to just do my own study. I don't know. Maybe we can get a clinical trial for that. Well, do a behavioral trial. How can safety training be implemented for our population that will protect their right to the least restrictive while keeping them safe? Because we want them to have those social interactions, but we want them to be safe. And what does that look like? And there's just very little information for our population on that. But our kids are smart, and they're resourceful, and they're sneaky, and they can lie, and they can keep a secret when they want to. They can keep a secret when they want to. And so those are things that we really need to consider. So with that said, I wasn't able to find anything, but I got this from my old agency, the human trafficking, because I had to do human trafficking for a while. I had a whole bunch of different hats many years ago. But there's a grooming line, so just kind of, and this is something, again, you can use with your other kids, just to understanding. You have people that target them. Oh, I saw Victor. Victor has too much information. He's 29. His birthday is on November 22nd. He went to CDO High School. He graduated in 2015. And it's not just our population. How many people you have friends that have that information, right? So if they do have it, go in there and find out what their profile and lock that down. Lock it down. So, you'll have those people that will observe the young person or adult. They'll select the person. They're looking at photos. They're identifying who they're going to select to target them. They will gain and develop their trust. I want to be your friend. I want to be your friend. And I don't, once it goes into friendship and forming stages, they're going to feel special. You're the prettiest person I have ever met. Victor, man, you rock. I didn't realize that you got to speak for the FDA, man, and developing those friendships and relationships and those bonds. And then you have their sickos that will take it into a loving relationship. And why don't you it's okay to sneak out. Just sneak out. Or why don't you call me when your mom goes to bed, and we'll just message on Messenger. It happens. And then it goes into abusive. Well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore if you're going to act like that. How many of you, I know Victor gets really upset. He doesn't like me. He's mad at me. You guys have your kids saying that? Yeah, he's mad at me. And so they try, because, again, they want that connection. But if you have somebody with a criminal mind, that connection is going to be catastrophic. So we're out of time. Gaming safeties. How many of your kids game? Yeah, most of them boys, but some of the girls do. Know what they're doing, because, again, one, they get on the internet again, right? A lot of them are live gaming and talking to live people, and they can go off and do chats. And again, people that have that criminal mind may be selecting them. They're figuring out who this person is and may try to get a relationship with them. So there's a few things on what you can do. Know what your kid's on. Have that computer in an area where you can observe it. And I'm guilty. I want to watch TV and mindless stuff for a while, and I don't want to listen to the gaming, but it's important. And your child, some kids are better than others, but if your kids tend to be risky about things, you might have to listen in for a while, have one ear here and one ear there. Or if you want them to put the headsets on, watch what they're doing, or put in the captions on the bottom for hearing impaired so you can see what those conversations are, so you can keep that. To set up those rules, have the child check in before they go into a different game, before they download anything, because they're quick at downloading stuff, very quick at downloading stuff. And just keep an eye on those games. Just keep an eye on those games, and always passwords. Get every one of those passwords, because they don't like to give them up at all, and they will change them often. Like Victor will give me, Victor 123 is his password, and tomorrow it's not Victor 123, it's Victor 234, because mom has it and he's trying to sneak and he doesn't want me on there. And it might not necessarily be because he's doing anything wrong. He wants his independence, but it could be. And so, like back on Facebook and all that, we're connected to all of his accounts so that we get all of that feed, so that we're monitoring it. And again, it's a pain, but it keeps him safe because he will talk to anybody. Sexting. I can tell you our population does this all the time because I get calls on this all the time. Where this becomes dangerous is if we have an adult with Prader-Willi talking to an under 18 person with Prader-Willi or not. Doesn't even have to be anyone under 18. And that under 18 person sends sexually explicit stuff to them. It's illegal. It's child porn. Okay, it's child porn. And so we have to be aware of that. If they have phones, you have to have those things so you can go back there. They will delete messages. That's the hard part about that. Messenger, they'll delete their messages when they're talking to people. So just be aware that those are some of the pitfalls of that. Usually it's because it's their girlfriend or their boyfriend, and they're just, I love you, I love you, I love you, and it's innocent. But it could be someone that has ill will to do something against our children, and they're now sexting, and they're normalizing that talk before they take it to the next level. Okay? Hey, we're doing good. And then is there anybody that doesn't know what sexting is? All right. Basically, you are talking about sexual inappropriate things to another person. And our kids usually don't understand those boundaries, and when it becomes normal and when it becomes part of that relationship, it does get worse. And I've seen individuals on TikTok with developmental disabilities that, like, daddy's here with me. Well, somebody calls someone daddy. I've done human trafficking. There's something going on. There's something going on, so we've got to be very careful about situations like that. 60% of the time, because they do blackmail. I'm not going to talk to, for our population is, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to sneak you food when I see you at the day program or what have you. And 60% do get blackmailed when they get into inappropriate relationships like this. And how does it happen? When it's an unknown offender, usually it's, through social media, and they learn the information. And of course, you also have people that you do know, and we all know that that happens with friends and family, and our population has a 75% increase in being victimized. So again, like you guys didn't have enough on your plate, right? We have one more thing that we have to deal with. You know, again, this has nothing to do with development disability, but talking about technology and talking about sexuality and relationships online is important, not only for your individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome, but also your other children. Cyberbullying, I put this in here just because it happens. And let me just tell you, these PWS folks, when they get group chats going on, because I've seen them and I've had to call Stacy and we've had to monitor stuff and get a hold of families, it gets nasty. They get mean with each other, you know? And so if you see that your son or daughter is really upset because Victor said something, you know, talk to them about it, find out what it is. If it's my son, please call me, you know? You know, I've got 3 kids. I can get rid of one. It's fine. You know, spot it, deal with it, and then, you know, let them know that they have to self-advocate, but, you know, we might have to gently help them do that if they're not comfortable doing it on their own. And then briefly on human trafficking, that a lot of people think about, you know, they're going to swoop in, they're going to have a woman, you know, it's going to be mostly women, and they're going to put them in sex trade business and everything. But the definition is the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by improper means, such as force, which is that way, abduction, that happens, fraud or coercion, for an improper purpose, including forced labor or sexual exploitation. So we think sex trade, right? Not always. It could be SSI or SSD fraud. It could be domestic servitude. And I'm going to have you come in and you're going to do work for me, and I'm going to force you to work. You have men and women that will bring people in and force them to do things at home, a labor type thing other than sexual, whether it might be in a business or their home to do things. And that is criminal. It's usually accomplished, again, through online relationships. This is pretty busy. You know, you can go on the missing National Exploitation Missing Persons, and there's a couple of different places that you can go to, and they will help you, or they have a whole bunch of things. The Center of Missing Exploited Children, the national one, actually has a thing for development disabilities, and you can go through and take some online little tests and have your kids do it too. So go and just explore that and look at it. But protect yourself, friend requests, you know, if your kids are getting friend requests, it's something to be aware of. Gaming, everything else. And these are some of the resources on a lot of the slides that I had up here, so that you guys can go on there. ASU has a phenomenal program. They have a lot of information if you go on there. The Missing Person at Smarts has, those are the classes that I was talking about that they have. Urban Dictionary, you know, because these kids, I don't understand stuff. I'm 60 years old, so, you know, there's something like, what is that? And now they have all these acronyms, and I'm like, these are really good places to go and get information, not only for your kids with Prader-Willi syndrome, but for those of you that have other individuals. Safety has to be a priority for our population. It's just, how do we get there, right? And it's hard. It's hard. And there's my babies. There's my babies. And there's my baby now and then. He was talking to state senators there. He's full of himself. He likes to be out there and by himself. And there's my information. You feel free to email me, call me, text me if you guys have anything. If you have a situation involving law enforcement, please call the hotline or call Prader-Willi Syndrome USA first, because we need to document that there was that. The statistics are good. We talk about grants and stuff like that. It's good. We have to have those type of statistics. They're not going to use your name or anything on those, but we can get grants so that we can actually do some of these things that I'd like to do. Okay. All right. Where are we at? Woo. All righty. Questions. I think they're going to have to bring a mic because they're videotaping this. So I'm going to take him and then I'll take you. Okay.
Check.
They're going to bring a mic up to you.
Thank you for your presentation. Would you have it available for download?
I believe that they're going to have that available. I've given this to them before, Prader-Willi, but I am sure it's going to be available at some point. Maybe we get that answered before. Perfect. In 3 weeks, it'll be available. There you go. YouTube. Okay, ma'am?
So I have the same problem that you just reported with socializing improperly on the internet. So I took the phone, and then there's the iPad, and there's the computer. Yeah. It's impossible.
It's everywhere.
Right. So how do I block it? I tried to block the person she was talking to, but then she goes talking to him on another app. So what do I do?
Well, if you're able, how is she getting into? Is she getting into? You take her phone, so then she goes to the computer. Is that what she's doing? Mm-hmm. You're going to have to lock down all those things. I mean, take all of it, and it's going to be probably a major fight. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a major fight. There's no way of getting around that at all. And so you're going to have to take all of those away from her, and or change your Wi-Fi password. It would be another thing, and not give her the Wi-Fi password so she can't get on Wi-Fi to do anything. And you might have to, just like locks in a cabinet, because they start, like, I swear Victor hears what the code is. You'll have to change that often. But you're going to have to take all of those away, not one at a time. You're probably going to, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. And you're going to have to take all those away. If you go on, you could hit, if it's Messenger, you go in and block them. If you know the individual's name and stuff, same thing as a phone. But it's going to be a process, and it's not going to be successful the first time around usually, because they will find something in the house. Put passwords on your computers so they can't get into your computers. Always have the password on.
I did it for a while.
It's exhausting, right? You forget. It's exhausting.
And then eventually she needs the phone because she needs it for other things.
If they need the phone, you dial the number and you control it.
No, but she works, so she uses the phone for work too.
Well, there should just be a landline rather than a cell phone where she can't get on.
She can't. She uses it to talk to people and do demonstration for sales.
Does she have why don't we talk offline real quick? Okay, and then we can get a couple other people. I know we had, someone back there.
I have two questions real quick. Number one, you mentioned the blue forms or the red forms are for prescription medications. Is that right?
Red forms could be for, I would put the prescriptions on there, but if meds gets called, you have a kid has apnea, you have a kid that has DVTs and stuff like that. It's kind of a down and dirty for meds if they have to come to your house so that they have everything. Because if your kid is in distress, you might forget to tell them something that's really critical, medications, what have you, adverse effects. Victor's, he has narcotics, he goes into respiratory distress. You might forget some of those things, and it has that on there that we can just hand it to them.
Okay, so those live with you, and
They
you
live
just
with
hand
you.
it when they show up.
Yes.
It's not in the shift briefing or anything like that.
Those live with you, correct.
Okay. And then my second question, have you seen those, I know GABB phones that are just,
Right.
they're not smartphones, they're
Right.
just talk and text.
Right.
Are those helpful in your
They
experience?
are helpful, yes, so you can communicate, and some of them, if they're not smartphones, that's the way to go for them to have that. I know some people are like, what other way do we keep them safe, and we get to know where they're at, they have everything from AngelSense to AirTags now, but that is the way to go, and don't ever introduce a smartphone.
Thank you.
Thank you. We had somebody back, right there.
I just had a comment about that other lady's comment. I've got a lot of comments, but I'm going to keep some of them to myself. But I wondered what your thoughts were on, my son had this happen. He's 30. He lives in a group home. And I was monitoring his Facebook Messenger, and another person with PWS was sending him naked pictures. I called her myself. So we blocked her, of course,
Right.
but I called her and asked to talk to her parent. She never contacted him again.
Right.
So I wondered what your thought was on that. Like, if you would advise people to block, but also, as a parent, contact them yourself.
I would contact them myself, absolutely.
Yeah, I did. I was like, you do
Yeah,
not.
I don't care. They can get ticked off at me. I don't care.
That was my
Yeah.
thought. Okay,
All right.
perfect. Thanks.
All that was they gonna do, hang up on you? Okay. Over here, oh, wait, hold on. Right
So
here.
you mentioned starting the conversation with law enforcement, then contact your neighborhood contact officer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called a community resource officer. They usually have a dedicated unit that doesn't patrol. They actually deal with community resource situations, and they're probably your best point of contact to begin with.
So my daughter's 21, not all these things. I do have to remind myself too that she could be that person sending the pictures too.
Absolutely.
So if I had to have to make that phone call, you know, a little bit of empathy there. And she also, the cyberbullying, I see that people yell at her and she shuts down. Sometimes I can read it on her face. My question is, do we have anything that could scare the crap out of them about what happens? Like, are there videos? Because I know, you know, she knows all about the fire alarms and everything to do, and that's embedded.
Yeah.
Can we
The
come up
hard
with
part
something?
is, like, our kids, logically, most of them understand it, but there's not much that would probably scare any of them, because that is their means to communication with people outside of their family. And so that's the tough part. I could probably, I would get on, there's nothing in the schools, but I would get on one of these resources and look at some of the little things that they talk about, and have her and sit down with her and just talk to her. The Center of Missing Persons organization, NetSmarts, they have, and they're for development disabled individuals, so that will help them, and you could sit and kind of just do a one-on-one with them and go through that. Okay? Uh-huh.
I guess mine is not so much a question, but a comment. Especially a gentleman in the back brought up the non-smartphones. Well, if any of you have not introduced your child to a smartphone, don't ever do it.
Absolutely, 100%.
Ever. And computers, Facebook, any of that. My child has been through hell and high water in every single thing she's talked about on both sides, as the predator, and then when videos were sent at the time, she was only 16. We went through it on that side. We went through it on the adult side. We went through abduction. We've been through everything. I suggest my daughter wears, it's called My Secure Phone, because of the same reasons that you have. I wanted her to be able to be in touch with me and with friends. You can put in 3 family members, and you can put in, I think it's like 12 other people.
You can.
Those
It's like
are
a
the
parental
only,
control type thing.
Oh, these are the only people that she can text or call. And these are the only people that can ever text or call her. There is no internet, there is no smartphone, there is nothing. And
Can you say the name of that one more time so the people that are listening to this can hear it again, the name of it?
My Secure Phone, you can look it up on that, mysecurephone.com. It comes with an app. You buy the phone. It's $250. You get a plan. What I like about it, she cannot turn it off ever, and I have to turn it off from the app, and it has a tracking device on it, so I know where she is all the time. She lives independently with 24-hour staff. I know where staff brings her. I know how much time she spent there. It has been a lifesaver.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. That's good information. Who else do we have?
My son he has a cell phone with no cell service connected to it. So in
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi he can use it. So we still use that for Spotify, for his music, for when he uses his Fitbit watch. Like, can you use any sort of music? Anybody know of a phone or some sort of something that has music
Victor has an old iPod
capabilities?
still.
I know, right?
He has the old iPod, and I
Yeah.
just keep buying them from Amazon or eBay, for him to have his music down there. Anybody else have any over here? Yeah, she had some information.
They're just kind of like two comments. One, I think we use the Bark app to monitor actually just my typical 12-year-old. My 16-year-old PDOS, we haven't gone here. He's not interested, so we're not going there. But the Bark app, and it's really sensitive, so I get alerts. It monitors Facebook. It monitors any social media your kid is on, and you get an immediate text. It monitors for bullying. It monitors. I mean, it is so sensitive.
And that's a paid service,
It is a paid service. You have to pay per year, but it's really been it's been good. If you're already there and you're like, my kid's going to use this stuff, I can't go back now. I've kind of gone to the point of return. And we also use runner ID. So he wears a runner ID on his shoe,
Right.
and we also pay for it. But if he were to be found somewhere, there's a 1-800 number on it, and then they have complete access to his entire medical file. So we provide the information that they can see, and the first responder calls the 1-800 number, and they'll see everything about Prader-Willi syndrome, like whatever we want them to know if you were to be found somewhere without us.
Yeah, there's several different apps and things out there, which is great. You know, they didn't have it back when my kids were young, to have, you know, and a lot of them are service. If you're restrained by, having to pay that monthly thing and doing it, even a simple AirTag, if you have an iPhone, can be put in their clothes. I've seen some bracelets. You can put them on a bracelet, on a necklace, and stuff like that. So even something as simple as that. We've got about 3 minutes left. Anybody else?
Hi.
What was the name of the last thing you said? Runner ID. Bark has a phone that can turn the music on, and the guardian can get the information immediately.
Hello. I'm going back to the police officers knowing more about Prader-Willi.
Correct.
We live here in Orlando now, and I work with special needs children, so we do have that decal for the houses and for the cars for autism.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that is like tells the police officers, oh, look into this. Do we have anything like that for Prader-Willi?
Well, and the problem would be is it's jurisdictionally different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And so we don't have anything like that for Prader-Willi syndrome, but you could probably partner with your local agency and see if they would be willing to educate and train their officers within that jurisdiction on that.
Okay.
And they might be open to it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
2 minutes.
Hi, I just wanted to say that National did have a little card that said
Law enforcement card.
Law enforcement card that explained their disability. But yeah, my son has done pretty much all above, and he's just so high functioning. And
Yes.
now to say, you can't have a computer, you can't have your phone, you can't do Facebook is just so difficult.
It is.
But I am going to look into, like you said, like the apps that you can track him, track where they've been. I don't know if that's just like for certain programs, like just for Facebook, or
No, it'll do anything that's coming across that device. You will get notified on.
And you said the other, like the bracelet tracker. So like you can just buy a bracelet, and how does that tracks? That's like a GPS.
Yeah, there's different devices out there, and it would track where your individual is. all the
Okay, because
time.
he has eloped and he has
Yeah.
hooked up with some strangers saying he was hungry and they
Correct.
brought him food, and he's very resourceful. He ordered pizza and opened the window
love
and
their pizza, don't
and
they?
tied his towels to his laundry basket and
Right.
dropped it down the window. Yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
been done everything.
Oh yeah. This individual right here, and then we'll be done. We'll have to be. Did you have something, sir? Are you good? Okay, that lady back there, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Hi, quick question.
Yes.
I'm sort of in virgin territory here. I have a 24-year-old. She doesn't have a phone yet.
Okay.
But she uses internet at our house. She's now moving out to her own home, living 24/7 staff.
Okay.
But she loves her Fitbit, which connects to my phone. Any ideas on how I can get it connected without me being there and giving her a phone? Does anyone know? I'm not.
The Fitbit without a phone?
Yeah, I don't know if it works.
I don't think it works without a phone.
Because her motivation is to do so many steps and to work
So
out.
what I would do is I would just go online and
Okay.
Google that thing. I don't know of any. There's got to be trackers that you can do without a phone.
Right.
And it might be those old-fashioned ones that I'm again showing my age. I'm 60. That are there that they'll have to do that. To motivate them.
Okay.
And then put a reward system in for that kind of tracker.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, you guys. I'll be here for a while if you guys have any questions. Thank you.